I'm giving out one bet for every single fight this weekend at UFC Rio. And boys, if you watched the show last week, we are back in the win column. It feels good. We need to catch a hot streak and cash out the rest of this year. Just a couple of more months until January 1st. We're going to go like 4 weeks without a card when it hits that time of year, which is depressing. So we got to make the most of this. Look, I know I won last week, but drop a comment here. I'm going to pick one comment on next week's show, and I'm going to give out another 100 too. I did it last week. It felt good. I like giving back to you guys. So like this video, make sure you're following and just drop a comment. And next week, I will pick one person, and I will Venmo you $100. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the show. Excuse me, I'm sick right now. It was a struggle to get all of this together, but kind of trying to relax and stuff. Been watching a lot of film, getting ready for this show, in fact. So yeah, man, apologies if my voice sounds weird, if you can't understand me at times. I'm battling through it. But Lacerda taking on Simon Oliveira in the first fight on the card. This one's weird because Simon Oliveira is 0-3 in the UFC. You got Lacerda taking a couple of losses so far in his UFC career, but Lacerda hasn't really fought in a couple of years. I believe it's 2023 since he was in the UFC octagon. And also, so far in the UFC, he's landed a takedown in each of his fights, just one singular takedown in each one. And, the guy is a submission artist. That's what he wins the majority of his fights by. But he throws a lot of kicks while on the feet. He doesn't look like he's a fish out of water with the striking whatsoever, which has kind of been his opponent, Simon Oliveira's downfall. Simon, not a bad striker either, doesn't have a ton of power. Got a couple of knockouts on his record on the regional scene, but hasn't been real effective in the UFC with it. But he does get hurt, and he gets hurt quite a bit. And, once he starts getting hit to the body, he covers up a little bit, and then, he kind of throws in the towel when he does show that first sign of getting hurt. I think Lacerda could kick him to the body, hurt him that way. And, if Oliveira wants to go to the grappling, you're coming right into Lacerda's wheelhouse. My only problem with Luan is obviously the 2-year layoff. I don't like that whatsoever, but, I just can't get really behind either guy in this spot. You guys know what the rule is. First fight of the card, we got to give out plus money. I'm going to give out 2 plays here. I'm going to give a super long shot. Not a super long shot, but plus 550. And then I'll give out another one that I think is more realistic. But first, I'm going to go Lacerda by KO at plus 550. Just because those nasty kicks he comes with. We've seen Oliveira hurt to the body before. And plus 550 is going to be the official play. To make a little money, I'm just going to take Lacerda to win this by finish, minus 185, in case he gets that club and sub or something like that as well. So that's the first fight on the card. Could be a banger, but, there's just not... It's hard to get a read on this fight here. All right, next up, Julia Polastri versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Kowalkiewicz, obviously almost 40 years old. She's slowing down. She's getting hit a lot more in fights. She doesn't have that speed that she once did, but she's got the experience. She's a veteran of the game, and her striking has always been, pretty fair and on point. But Polastri, I think she could be a really good fighter in the UFC if she locks in, gets a couple of wins under her belts. She's got a ton of experience now. Not a ton of experience, but, she's getting this high-level experience, taking a loss to Luque Godinez, where she came back and had Luque, kind of on skates in that third round. She even outstruck Luque in that spot. She just got taken down 5 times. Beat Corey McKenna. They called it a split decision, but, she outlanded her by, double. Loses to Josephine Knudsen. And then lost to Jazz the Vicious on the Contender Series, but she is basically even with all these girls striking and probably landing the more damaging shots. She gets in trouble when she's getting taken down and controlled, and she's trying to fight off of her back and throw up arm bars and stuff like that. I don't think she has to worry about that here against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, which I think is a good sign for her. We've seen Karolina TKO'd before. We've seen her hurt before, and her being a little bit older and Polastri being a downhill type of fighter, I think Polastri could find a lot of success. I think Polastri, could be live for that submission too if she gets top position on the ground. But I just think she's going to rack up so much damage, especially when this fight is going later on. Officially for me, I'm taking more big plus money. I'm going to take Polastri inside the distance at plus 330. But I also like Polastri to win in round 2 at plus 1,000 and win in round 3, which I especially like at plus 1,400. So, yeah, officially inside the distance plus 330. I'm sprinkling on those round props too. And those are the official plays for this one. We're starting out with big plus money, man. We're going to try to make that cash right off the bat and then get rolling downhill from there. Next fight, flyweight division, Lucas Rocha taking on Stuart Nicoll. If you remember Stuart Nicoll, he came into the UFC in his debut, had a little bit of hype behind him. He was undefeated and gets submitted in round 1 by Jesus Aguilar. I mean, if Jesus Aguilar is finishing a fight and your name is not Shannon Ross, it comes by guillotine. I mean, that's his signature move. And, Nicoll is a grappler. The guy is a wrestler and just could not help himself, put his neck in that situation and got finished. I think he's better than that. And, UFC debut jitters, I think he's going to bounce back and have a better showing here for sure. But, across from him, Lucas Rocha is pretty decent offensively. My biggest problem with Rocha is that he's just super small, even for a flyweight. He's not super physically imposing. He's not real strong. Grappling, submission-wise, if he's on top, he'll go for him. He's a good grappler, but he gets caught on his back, and these guys are just too strong for him, kind of like we saw when he fought Clayton Carpenter. Carpenter got a lot of control time until in the second round he pulled off the submission. So for a guy like Stuart Nicoll, I think people are down on him, obviously, because of his debut. But I think this is a style of fight where he could get pieced up on the feet for sure. But I think he's going to have his opportunities to get the fight to the mat. And when he does, I really do believe that that's going to be a problem for Lucas Rocha here. So I'll take the slight dog on the money line. I'm going to take Stuart Nicoll to upset the Brazil crowd. And that's what we're rocking with for this pick. All right. Next fight, Beatriz Mesquita taking on Irina Alekseeva. These are quite some last names here. And Irina Alekseeva just came out here in her last fight and absolutely laid an egg. It was miserable to watch. I mean, losing to Claudia Segula, outstruck 101-63, got taken down once. It just wasn't good all around whatsoever. And Alekseeva, I believe, was a pretty big favorite in that spot. Lost to Melissa Mullins before that by decision. Alekseeva is going to have to keep this fight on the feet, because Bia Mesquita is a world champion in the gi and no-gi jiu-jitsu. I mean, the girl is absolutely solid on the mat. If she takes her back, it's probably over in women's MMA for sure. But especially against Irina Alekseeva. We've seen Alekseeva pull off knee bars, arm bars, stuff like that. But you're not going to do that against a world champion in no-gi. And, I think she could be possibly dumb enough to go to try to grapple her here and not realize that if she keeps it on the feet, she's going to win the fight. But for Mesquita, I think you just try until it fails. If your takedowns fails, you roll into the legs. You do whatever you can to just get a hold of her, get her in the clinch, or just get her wrapped up on the ground one way or the other. And I think she's going to work herself into a dominant position. So I don't really like this this fight whatsoever as far as a bet goes. I kind of lean with fight ends inside the distance. It's minus 260 right now. I think you use it as a parlay piece just because, if Mesquita doesn't get the takedowns, I think she's going to gas out. And I think Alekseeva is at least somewhat dangerous on the feet where she can knock her out. But the second it does hit the mat, I do think it's probably over via sub for Mesquita. So fight ends inside the distance. Use it as a parlay piece. I absolutely hate this fight. And I'm not super confident on really anything, any props, nothing. So that's what we're getting in that spot. We're getting better, though. We're getting Vitor Petrino next versus Thomas Petersen. And, Vitor Petrino, if you missed his last fight, he moved up to heavyweight. He looked phenomenal. He looks like he's on all the roids you could possibly find in Brazil. And, I think heavyweight's going to serve him a lot better than 205. Guys are a little bit slower. He can take them down. There's not a ton of phenomenal heavyweight wrestlers, although Thomas Petersen does have some good wrestling in his back pocket. I just don't think he's going to be able to control him on the mat if he does get takedowns. And while it's on the feet, I think Petrino hits hard. I think he's going to be way faster. He can implement some leg kicks here and maybe even work in some takedowns of his own as the fight goes on. And I think the top position for Petrino here is going to be a lot better against a guy like Thomas Petersen, who is a wrestler. He's not necessarily got phenomenal jiu-jitsu. I think Petrino will be able to work in some submission attempts. I know Petersen's a big boy. He's hard to get hooks in. It's hard to pull off those chokes, arm triangles, and all that. But I think Petrino can get the ground and pound going. And while it's on the feet again, I think the speed difference is going to be pretty massive. And those reasons, I'm leaning toward Petrino to get this thing done. But, I think he does it by knockout or submission. We've seen Thomas Petersen knocked out by Shamil Gadzhiev, who, hits hard for sure. He's a big boy, but Petrino's way faster than him. I think he's going to find the chin more often. So yeah, give me Petrino by knockout or sub at -110. That is the official pick for that fight. Now, this is a fun fight for Rafael Filho and Clayton Carpenter. The preacher, Rafael Filho. I mean, this matchup in general, you look at Clayton Carpenter and what he wants to do. He'll march forward. He's got decent striking, but he wants to get the fight to the mat. He's got decent jiu-jitsu. He's very physically strong. He's in shape. And, he racks up a lot of control time until you present something to him that he can take, kind of like Lucas Rocha, submitting him there. But on the flip side, I think where he's going to struggle is Filho has phenomenal jiu-jitsu. We saw him almost submit Muhammad Mokaev, hold his own in that department. I don't really think Clayton Carpenter is that level of grappler. But on the feet, I think this gets somewhat even. Who's more dangerous? I think Filho might be more dangerous on the feet, throwing more unorthodox strikes, doing some damage. I think Carpenter might, throw more volume and be a little bit more technical. But, I mean, they're in Brazil, too. That's my last thing. This is a very, very close fight and a good matchup. But this crowd is going to be screaming threats to Clayton Carpenter for 15 minutes straight. I think that gives Filho a little bit of energy. And if they do mix it up on the ground, Filho just went to a close decision with Alan Nascimento, who is a phenomenal grappler, who I think is better than Clayton Carpenter, would beat Clayton Carpenter, too. And, Filho had a chance to win that fight. So I think he gets the better of those exchanges, especially in the first 2 rounds. Round 3 may be a different story. But if you're going to give me a slight underdog, plus 102 on a fighter who's fighting in Brazil, which is probably one of the hardest countries to go in and fight if you're not from there, and, he's in a matchup where he could have success based off the styles that Clayton Carpenter brings, yeah, I'll take a shot on the dog here. So give me Rafael Filho. All right. We're now on the main card after Walter Walker and Mo Usman fell off. I heard Mo Usman failed a drug test. I heard that's why he's out. I haven't been looking at the headlines or nothing. Maybe they've already announced that. If not, expect that to come in. Maybe it was an accident, something he didn't know he took. But yeah, look at the guy. You never know. But to kick off the main card, Lucas Almeida versus Michael Aswell. This is another fight that Styles makes fights, and this is going to be a great one because Lucas Almeida is very technical with his kickboxing. He'll try to beat up that lead leg, but he's got some power. He's a good counter striker, and he's kind of shown he can fight a full 15 minutes. He can get knockouts. He's can get hurt himself, which is all reasons I think this is going to be a fun one. Standing across from Michael Aswell, yet to win in the UFC or on the Contender Series, losing to Bogdan Grad and Balaji Oki, up a weight class on short notice. But he does throw a lot of volume. He's a slick boxer, doesn't have a ton of power, and that's what I don't like in this matchup when I'm looking at which guy I think is going to implement more damage and win the big moments. I think Aswell probably has better cardio. I do think he's going to throw more, but Lucas Almeida, man, he's got some power. Knocked down, Timothy Kwamba 2 or 3 times in that fight, won that pretty handily. He's landed big knockdowns before in the UFC. And, if he lands a few of those, that's about all it takes to swing the round towards him, especially being a Brazilian fighter with the Brazilian crowd that's going to go absolutely crazy whenever he's landing those. So, yeah, man, I think this is a fun fight. It probably lasts all 3 rounds because Aswell seems very, very tough. And, like I said, I don't think he's got a ton of power, but Almeida can put the lights out of anybody, I believe. So very, very interesting. Almeida also has, he can mix it up on the ground a little bit. He's not really looking to do that. A lot of times I've seen him taken down. Instead of looking for submissions, he's normally looking to use them to get back to his feet. So, yeah, if somebody wins this fight and it's a finish, I'm definitely thinking it's knockout. For me, though, this is another one. You're giving me the underdog, the Brazilian underdog, who's got more power, who probably is going to win the bigger moments. And, that crowd is going to go crazy every time Lucas Almeida connects. So, yeah, I'm going to take a shot on it. I don't think Aswell is going to knock him out. I think it's going to decision, if anything, possible Lucas Almeida knockout. And either way, I think that favors the underdog here. So give me Lucas Almeida at plus 125 on the money line. It's going to be a super, super fun fight, though. Good stylistic matchmaking. All right. Ricardo Ramos and Khan Oflil. This one, there's things I don't like. There's more things that I don't like on both sides than things that I do. I like that Ricardo Ramos is fighting here in Brazil in front of his home crowd. I like that he's the more dangerous fighter. But what I don't like is the moment he starts sensing trouble or gets hit hard, he's kind of looking for a way out of the fight, or at least what it seems. He puts his head in bad situations. We've seen him take big shots and then just kind of crumble afterwards. Cardio kind of falls apart after taking a little bit of damage. Con Oflil, we've seen the lights shut out by Myron Santos. We saw him lose a decision in his next fight where he looked a little bit better. But Con Oflil is going to have success when he's getting takedowns and able to ride out some control time. Just don't really see that happening as much against Ricardo Ramos. I think if Ramos is not taking big damage, and I don't really expect him to as much against a Con Oflil on the feet, I think Ramos is going to make you fight. If you're going for takedowns, he's going to work. He's going to land those elbows to the side of the temple, look for submissions until he's back up to the feet, or is catching you in one of those slick submissions. And while it's on the feet, I think Ramos has the chance to hurt Con Oflil. I think he can knock him out. He throws nasty, nasty spinning elbows, good kicks. So yeah, overall, I think this fight, what I'm going to play here is fight ends by finish at -120, just because I think Ramos has the ability to finish this fight anyway by submission, more likely probably by knockout. And on the flip side, Con Oflil is a wrestler with some, somewhat of power in his hands at times, but it doesn't take a whole lot to change the fight here hitting Ramos. If Ramos does get hit by just one big shot, that could lead to a finish shortly after. And, mixing those two things on each of those sides, I think this fight does end up by finish. So -120, that's what we're rocking with for Con Oflil and Ricardo Ramos. So Ricardo Ramos. All right, next fight. Jonathan Denise taking on Mario Pinto. This is one of the closer fights on the card, I think. And the lines kind of reflect that as well. Denise, a little bit older, good kickboxer. Mixed results so far in the UFC. He's got some power in his hands. He, at times, will be a little bit too low volume for me. What's he landing? Statistically, he lands a decent amount of volume, but there's times, man, when he's fighting Marcin Tybura, he got taken down once, obviously, but while it was on the feet, man, he just couldn't really get his striking going, only landed 15 significant strikes. Against Carl Williams, you're going to look and be like, oh, man, well, he beat up a wrestler and was able to keep that on the feet. Carl Williams didn't really attempt many takedowns, and Denise didn't even crack 60 significant strikes in that one. Obviously knocks out Austin Lane, didn't really have to there. And then same thing on the Contender Series. He throws a lot of these little kicks. Like I said, I think his kickboxing is pretty good. But standing across from him in Mario Pinto, I think Mario Pinto is going to be a problem across the board. And he's a younger fighter. He's 27, 28. Knocked out Austin Lane as well, just like Denise did. But Mario Pinto is a little bit more patient. He waits for his shots. He'll kind of tap you with those leg kicks. He has a long jab. He's going to be the longer fighter here. And, he comes back with that right hand trying to counter you. He'll throw it straight down the pipe. And it's very, very dangerous. We saw him get that knockout in round 1 on the Contender Series. Obviously, like I mentioned, knocked out Austin Lane. And if you watch his regional tape in the amateurs, this guy goes to wrestling at times. He's got some grappling on the mat too, which Denise obviously does not. So worst case scenario, maybe he mixes a little bit of that in as well. I thought Denise looked good against Alvin Hines, but Alvin Hines was coming back after Denise started to slow down and get tired and was landing some big shots himself. I think Denise has got to go out there and knock out Mario Pinto early, because if he doesn't, I think the kicks, the jab is going to start doing damage to the nose. And I think Pinto's got the power at all levels, and especially in the first couple of rounds to knock him out. But something tells me Pinto, might have a little bit better cardio. At least, we haven't really had to see it too much, but I think Pinto is a guy who could fight deep. So that's just kind of more of an opinion. It's yet to be determined at the UFC level. You just look at the guys and how they fight. He conserves a little bit more energy. Denise, we've seen slow down and get tired before and even finish. So yeah, I'll take the underdog again here. Give me Mario Pinto for the pick and the official bet on this fight. All right. One of the biggest favorites on the card, I believe, Joel Alvarez taking on Vicente Luque. If this fight was 5 years ago, I'd be taking Luque at these odds. But, Joel Alvarez moving up to 170 pounds. I think he could start to look really good up there. He's not making the massive weight cut to 155. Not that he's had chin issues or cardio issues or anything that much, but now you kind of you're able to focus more on your skills and game planning than having to worry about making weight and all that stuff. And Joel Alvarez, skill wise, has it all. If he gets you in the clinch, his knees are absolutely disgusting. Good elbows, good striking at range too. Has some power, but on the mat, this guy is a savage too. We've seen him pull off submissions over good grapplers before. Luque obviously has that good grappling too, but Luque has just taken too much damage for me in the past couple of years. Ever since he got the brain bleed against Jeff Neal, he hasn't really been the same. He hasn't taken damage the same. I think Joel Alvarez is obviously going to be live to finish this fight by knockout or submission. But here's kind of how I see this playing out. Both guys on the feet, Alvarez landing something big, and then Luque kind of panicking, trying to drop down, grab a single leg, grab a double leg, anything he can do to get it to the mat, and Joel Alvarez kind of working from there out of submission. But if he doesn't even get the submission, I think the ground and pound's probably going to be enough. I see some 12-6 elbows coming in. He's got that big, long frame. Those are nasty, sharp elbows. Either way you look at it, man, I do think Joel Alvarez is going to get this done. I wouldn't parlay him at minus 550. I probably wouldn't parlay anybody at minus 550, but I do like the Alvarez finish prop. More often than not, I think this thing ends inside the distance. So that's what I'm rocking with in this one. Co-main event, Figgy and Montel Jackson. Figueiredo plus 250, Montel Jackson minus 310. I've got mixed feelings about this because, if I didn't see Figueiredo go out there and just get his knee torn off, I'd be more inclined to give him a look as this big of an underdog. But, those injuries like that are hard to come back from, especially after a full, long career in MMA. And also, being that he's getting up there in his 30s, in his upper 30s, and he's had a long career and he's taken damage, and we've seen him hurt in fights recently. I just don't like what the UFC is doing matchmaking wise here for Figgy against Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson's a guy who hasn't been super active, but he's got so much potential to be a big name in the UFC, and for the UFC to capitalize on kind of starting to push him towards the top of the division. One, because he's exciting as hell. He hits like a truck. He's always in some fun fights. And now you're going to put him in there against a former flyweight world champion, a guy in Figueiredo who just fought Corey Sandhagen, who just fought for the belt. You're kind of like pushing Montel Jackson into that next step, making him take that next step, fighting up the division for sure. It almost feels like they're setting him up for a big win here. You get that win over Figgy, you're kind of ready for the top 10, top 5, pushing closer to the top 5 at that point. And I think Montel Jackson has all the tools to get it done. I think he can hurt Figgy on the feet. I think he can defend a lot of the grappling eventually. He's just such a naturally bigger guy. He's strong. I know Figgy's strong, and I get he's got good wrestling, and he's got a great submission, great guillotine. But, I think Montel Jackson has learned a lot, even in his wins, some of his closer wins, like the fight against Daniel Marcos. I think he's learned a lot of things, and he's going to start getting better and better. He's still not that old of a guy. So yeah, man, I think Montel Jackson gets this thing done, but there's always this is MMA at the end of the day. Figgy does have an excellent skill set. If he's going to win the fight, I think it's got to be by submission. I think he's got to ride out control time, which I don't think he's going to get a ton of control time, but I do think if he does get takedowns, when Montel Jackson's getting up, there's going to be opportunities for Figgy to take advantage of and possibly attempt some submissions. So yeah, that's why I'm taking this fight to end by finish. It's plus money. It's plus 115. I think this is Montel sparking Figgy, kicking the leg off, doing something like that. Or it's Figgy snatching up some kind of submission maybe later in the fight if Montel Jackson starts to get tired. So, yeah, that's what I'm going with in that spot in the co-main event. Now, main event, this one is such a good fight. And I don't think I would have ever said that for a Mateusz Gamrot fight. But Charles Oliveira, man, in Brazil. It doesn't get much better than that. Charles Oliveira has never lost while fighting in Brazil. The guy, obviously 21 submissions in the UFC, 21 submissions in his career. The guy has been nothing but fun to watch in his UFC career. But there's the question, man, is he coming back too soon? Getting knocked out by Ilia Topuria just 3 months ago? Was he just dying to get on a card in front of his home crowd? I don't even want to say this, but it almost feels like if Charles Oliveira were to lose the Mateusz Gamrot this weekend, he might hang it up. being that he's done everything in this sport. He's absolutely filthy rich down in Brazil. He's a superstar. He can go enjoy his family. He's done everything there is to do. If you lose to Mateusz Gamrot, you're not getting another title shot. Okay, it's a long, long road back to it because there's so many guys in front of you now, including Gamrot. So yeah, I kind of get that vibe that if he were to lose, he could hang this thing up. So just keep that in mind. I haven't heard anybody really talk about it. I'm probably just thinking too much into it, but let's talk about the fight in general. Gamrot, everybody knows what he's going to do. He's going to pressure you. He's going to go for those low singles. He's going to look to get the fight to the mat. He's going to look to rack up control time, possibly look for Kimuras, ground and pound, the whole 9 yards. But we're talking Charles Oliveira here, the most dangerous submission artist ever in the UFC, a guy who's got a phenomenal guillotine, a guy who will attack any kind of submissions to get back to his feet if he feels he has the advantage in the striking, which I do think he's going to have that advantage against Mateusz Gamrot. Gamrot, I believe his best days are behind him. We saw in the Dan Hooker fight, man, the guy was slowing down. He was getting hit to the body. He was getting hurt. And, it just wasn't a great look in that third round. And I think that's the optics of that gave the judges or allowed the judges to give the fight to Dan Hooker there. Even against, he got dropped by Rafael dos Anjos. He won against Fiziev because of injury. But before that, a lot of people thought he lost the Jalen Turner fight, got a little bit tired. He lost to Beneil Dariush. Look, this is a 5-round fight, and these are 3-round fights that he's getting a little bit tired in. Especially that Dan Hooker look is just like, it really got me thinking. Like, if that thing had to go 2 more rounds, I think Mateusz Gamrot death gasses, and Dan Hooker probably finishes him in that spot, if I'm being honest. So, I think Charles Oliveira is a guy who has never had, crazy cardio, but he fights no matter what. And you got that Brazilian crowd behind you chanting for you. I think his kickboxing and his Muay Thai here is going to serve him well, because if Gamrot starts going for takedowns and all of a sudden he's fighting off submissions and he's, they're getting back to their feet, I think Mateusz Gamrot is going to get a lot more tired, a lot faster having to defend those submissions with Oliveira hanging on your back or hanging on your neck than Oliveira is going to get. So, yeah, man, I'm going to take the slight underdog here. Plus 100, Charles do Bronx Oliveira in Brazil. I mean, you're giving me the underdog in Brazil, the most beloved fighter since Conor McGregor, and he's fighting in front of his home crowd, and you're telling me Mateusz Gamrot's going to come in here and beat him? I don't see it. I don't care that 3 months ago he got flatlined by Ilia Topuria. Gamrot is not going to come out here and flatline Charles Oliveira. He just doesn't have the striking, the speed, or the power to. I mean, I say all this now and watch. It's going to happen. You better go bet Gamrot KO just in case. But all jokes aside, give me Charles Oliveira. I've seen everybody betting on Mateusz Gamrot this week, and it's just leaving me scratching my head. I don't know. I think it's going to be a great moment in Brazil. Give me Charles do Bronx Oliveira to close the show. Thank you guys once again for watching. I'm super sick. Today was my 4-year anniversary with my wife, so we got to go out to eat. I'm running a little bit late on the show, but it's going to be posted on Friday. Like I said, back in the win column, man. It feels good. We got a good card this weekend. 3 p.m. in the Midwest Central Time is when the prelims start. I believe that is 1 p.m. prelims if you live in California or in the Pacific time zone. And on the East Coast, they're going to be starting at 4 p.m. So a little bit earlier. It's around those apex start times. So they're in Brazil. Do not miss this card. I think, namesake, there's not a ton of name value besides Charles Oliveira, but there is some absolute bangers on this card, so don't miss it. Appreciate you guys once again. Shout out to sponsor of the show, BetUS. Link is down in my bio, in the description, You can bet in 49 of the 50 states using it. Make sure you sign up. And if you guys want to get all of my premium plays, the 5 or 6 best plays that I love, that I'm absolutely hammering after I watch weigh-ins and all of that, you can do so down below at winnable.com/HOF picks. Use code RIO, and you're going to get a 7-day free trial. Do not miss out on that. I need to get back on the winning train. I was up a ton of units, dropped about 12 in the last 4 weeks, up and down. But I feel a hot streak coming, and I like what I'm seeing on this card. So thank you guys again. Hit the like, drop a comment. I'm giving away that 100 next week. Make sure you are subscribed, and we will see you guys for next week's card.